After the First World War in Persia, today's Iran, Reza Shah achieved a social and political status very comparable to Ataturk's in Turkey. However, Reza Shah was not born a leader. In fact, he was born quite the opposite, but he managed to climb the social ladder and get to the top of the hierarchy. Reza Shah was born in a village in 1878 and named Reza Khan. His dad died the same year, so Reza Khan and his mother moved around a lot to live with his family. When he was 16, he joined the Persian Cossack Brigade. Later, he served in the Iranian army. In 1923, he was appointed prime minister, and he quickly made plans for modernization. In 1925, Reza Khan succeeded in getting the Majlis to formally exile Ahmed Shah to Europe. This led to Reza Khan's new identity, Reza Shah, the King of Iran. Okay. Under his rule, Reza Shah restored discipline and prevented the disintegration of the country by merging the different armies into one central national army, which he sent to crush the rebels to obtain legitimacy and popularity. When he returned to the capital, he was a hero. Reza Shah wanted to break with the past. He did this by introducing nationalism based on an unified Persian identity. Since Iran is a country with many ethnic cultures that each had its own language, Reza Shah outlawed ethnic languages and clothing to avoid ethnic differences and future separatist movements. He purified the Persian language by removing the Arabic words. In 1935, he changed the name of the country from Persia to Iran to symbolize the rebirth of the country. One of his greatest achievements was that when he introduced surnames and birth certificates, which was a major step towards standardizing Iran and the rest of the world. Before, the people had not had anything to prove their existence. They had only been known as the son or daughter of the father. In 1934, Reza Shah introduced women's rights. They were now allowed to attend schools. All of the 12 women who attended the newly formed Tehran University all achieved high positions. He also reduced literacy when he established secondary schools and introducing new schools reforms, which also improved social mobility because more people had access to an education. Same year, Reza Shah visited Turkey, where he was very impressed by the new Western dress code. So when he returned to Iran, he implemented it there too. Unfortunately, this dress code was not popular by the Iranians. Reza Shah prohibited women from wearing a veil in public, even though this clearly disrespected their religion. Also, government employees were forced to wear Western clothes, and all men except from clergymen had to wear a hat which was seen as international headgear.
Reza Shah's Iran and Ataturk's Turkey. Party system in Turkey. In 1925, the Republican People's Party was established and all opposition came under severe attack. The same year, in March, a new law came in. The law was to crush the Kurdish rebellion, and the law was named the Law of the Maintenance Authority. The law was then used extensively to rid the Kemalists of all foreign dissent, and the law remained in force until 1929. Kemal was also conscious of the danger of opposition, and that's why even with the Republican People's Party, where he introduced strict discipline, in Turkey the discussions were only allowed in closed meetings, and once a decision was taken, all the members were bound by that decision. The elections were held every 4 years, but the candidates were presented by the party. In 1930, a new party was given the go-ahead by Mustafa Kemal's total approval. Same year, the new party obtained 30 out of 502 local councils. In November that same year, the Free Republican Party was forced to close down. Some of the effects caused by World War I was that in both Turkey and Persia, modern-day Iran, the leadership was overruled. Neither the Sultan Mohammed VI in Turkey or the government in Iran really had anything to say. Turkey was depending on the West, while Iran was basically ruled by foreign troops. In both countries, this had major causes such as in Turkey where famine started to spread, which made people leave the country. And this made Turkey's population decline by 20%. What happened in Iran was that the country broke up into a number of local separatist revolts. Mustafa Kemal wanted to strengthen Turkey by dismantling the Sultanate and establishing a republic. In 1925, in Iran, after a parliamentary vote, Reza Khan took over as Shah from Ahmed Shah, and Reza Shah named his new dynasty Pahlavi. In 1925, in Iran, after a Shah named his new dynasty Pahlavi, while in Turkey, what Mustafa Kemal wanted to was to strengthen Turkey by dismantling the Sultanate and instead establish a republic.
When it came to clergy, you could say that it was an important thing in Turkey. However, Kemal decided to separate the Caliphate from the Sultan as a political break with the Ottomans. This meant the closing of religious school, abolishing of the Turkish Ministry of Religious Environments. The Islamic Kurds were replaced with civil Kurds in 1926. Turkey was still a Muslim country. It had just reduced the power of the clergy to become more like the Western countries. This success in doing religion now only belonged in the private sphere. This was a better way of doing it, compared to Iran, who at first was more courteous when it came to the clergy, but in the end, decided to make decisions that would directly target at the offending clergy. In 1924, the Turkish Women's Union was formed to promote women's rights. However, it was in 1934 that they were allowed to vote at national elections and present themselves as candidates. The union was banned in 1935 since it was stated that it had achievements in purposes, which was to obtain the right to vote for women. Women were now encouraged to pursue an education and enter public life. Kemal set an example of his own daughter, who became Turkey's first female combat pilot. Later on, when Reza Shah visited Turkey, he decided to give women in Iran equal rights as men, such as getting an education through their religious rights to where a will was taken away from them. Party system Turkey in 1925. The Republican People's Party was established, and all options came under a severe attack. The same year in March, a new law came in. The law was made to crush the Kurdish rebellion. The law was named the Law of the Maintenance of Order. The law was then used extensively to rid the Kemalists of all forms of dissent, and the law remained in force until 1929. Kemal was also conscious of the danger of opposition, and that's why even within the Republican People's Party he introduced strict discipline. In Turkey, the discussions were only allowed in closed meetings, and once a decision was taken, all the members were bound by that decision. The elections were held every 4 years, but the candidates were presented by the party. In 1930, a new party was given the go-ahead with Mustafa Kemal's total approval. Same year, the new party obtained 30 of the 502 local councils. In November same year, the Free Republican Party was forced to close down. Ataturk's nationalism disgust did not translate into a wild expense. Kemal had a case that he dropped Turkish terrorism claims to Mosul. The province of Mosul stood on the border of Turkey, and Iraq divided up the Kurdish community. Ataturk was also under pressure by the Grand National Assembly to push the Turkish right. Then a commission of inquiry was sent by the League of Nations in 1925. In Iran, Russian soldiers dictated the Persian army, but withdrew during the Russian Revolution, and Reza Khan was obtained Commander-in-Chief and Minister of Defense in 1921.
As for social and political and economic reforms, the Turks wanted the Treaty of Sevres reversed. A peace conference was afterwards held in Lausanne, Switzerland, to renegotiate the terms of the Treaty of Sevres. and on the 29th of October 1923 this became the Treaty of Lausanne, where Turkey was proclaimed a republic with Mustafa Kemal as its first president. However, in Persia after the war, the UK wanted them to sign the Anglo-Persian Agreement, which aimed to put Persia under the protection of the UK, and through the government of the UK wanted to take full control over Persia's finances, army, and its administration. Unfortunately, the UK did not go their way. Reza Khan changed his political ways to keep himself from losing popularity. This was a major blow to many people who thought he would reinstate a republic regime instead of a monarchical rule, which was very appealing to his middle-class supporters, who believed that it would break from the past and modernize Persia. However, according to the clergy and the Islamic authorities, a republic would lead to a separation of the state and the religion. This made Reza Khan change his view, and he justified it by saying that without a dynasty, the nation would not survive. He claimed that it was with a nationalistic thought of saving Iran that he kept the monarchy. Throughout Reza Shah's rule, he maintained a strict discipline, where disobedience was not tolerated. Rivalry was suppressed through restrictions of civil liberties. This was seen as the price to pay for obtaining independence and national unity. It even made him popular among those who feared disintegration. However, in the long run, his use of force led to dislike and declining popularity due to the fact that people felt suppressed. Even though Reza Shah wasn't a religious man, more than 99% of the Iranians are Muslims. However, there are also Christians and Jews, even though the number of Jewish people has dropped a lot the past 50 years. During Reza Shah's reign, the population increased about 20,000 people. Today, Iran hosts the largest refugee population, most of them coming from Afghanistan and Iran. In this picture, Iran is seen. The picture also shows losses and gains and influence through the years. The light color, green color, which is here, shows Iran or Persia in 1900. That is before World War I. And here is a part of Iran that was under Russian influence, which is the part up here. And this part was under British influence. So this is the part that was gained, and this part was lost. So today this is the modern Iran.